Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a special Saints Insider Reaction podcast. I'm Zach Ewan with Jeff Duncan, Matthew Paras, Luke Johnson. Saints have made a splash in free agency. As we told you on last week's show, what they like to do is wait out that first wave of free agency, see who's left out there, see what deals they can fit under their ever finessed salary cap. And they struck today. Chase Young, the former Washington Commander and briefly San Francisco 49er defensive end, is expected to sign with the Saints. Matt, we're going to let you do the honors on this. What are the details since he's a former Commanders guy?
Yeah, it's a really interesting signing. I mean, Chase Young, he signed a 1-year deal up to $13 million. So it's very much a prove-it deal for him. And that's kind of where he's at this stage of his career. You know, he's still relatively young, turns 25 next week, but he's coming off kind of a down couple years. I mean, I know he made the Super Bowl with the 49ers, but he didn't necessarily have the impact in San Francisco that I think maybe they were hoping for. Only had 2.5 sacks there during his 9 games. And really just, you know, in Washington, an incredible rookie season, 1 defensive rookie of the year going away. He helped them make the playoffs, albeit at 7-9, but they still won the NFC East. But, you know, he tore his ACL and ruptured his patellar tendon as well. And I think the tendon part is kind of what gets overlooked because, you know, a lot of guys suffer torn ACLs and come back. But it's really the latter part of the injury that really caused a really lengthy rehab. He only played 3 games the following year after getting hurt in late November of 21. So, you know, he's faced a lot of questions about his knee. I'm sure he'll get some more and he won't be happy about it. But that's kind of where he's a really gifted pass rusher, but hasn't necessarily panned out the way that I think many people expected.
Yeah, Luke, it's a risk-reward classic. I mean, the injury, there's a reason that a former number 2 pick hit the trade market and then hit free agency, and the injury concerns, some production concerns. But the reward part of that is the Saints might have just solved some pretty big pass rush issues if this works out.
Yeah, no, this is exactly the type of player the Saints have to sign in free agency, right? They can't go out and sign Danielle Hunter, you know, the guy who's proven it and has the track record over 5, 7, 8 years. You know, they have to take the kind of big swings, the look for the guy with high upside, who you could potentially, you know, more than get this money back, right? $13 million for an edge rusher is a drop in the bucket. I mean, I think that makes him the 32nd highest paid edge rusher in the NFL. So, you know, if he produces at his potential level, if they're able to get that out of him, I mean, it's a win-win for them because they were a terrible pass rushing team last year. You know, they could add some immediate juice to that unit. And, you know, for Chase Young, if he proves that he's more the player that he was in 2020 than he has been the past couple of years, and he gets to cash in a big way next year when he's still only 25 years old in free agency. So this makes a lot of sense. It's why a lot of us expected something like this was going to kind of, you know, be a part of the mix. If the money was right for both parties. So they got it done.
Yeah, 100%. Jeff, your reaction to this? We every year we kind of go through this. The Saints don't have any salary cap room to spend on anyone. They're not, you know, they're going to have to just get under the cap and stand pat. And then every year they find a way to get somebody.
Yeah, look, I think I agree with Luke and Matt. I mean, like, obviously, you know, the Saints weren't in position to go, you know, for a big time tier 1 free agents. So this is the kind of way you go. I mean, you know, if this pans out, it kind of reminds me a little bit a few years ago when they signed Nick Fairley, a former top 10 pick, and they got a really good productive year out of him on a prove-it deal and re-signed him to another deal. And he ended up having a medical condition, but it was a similar kind of thing, a guy that had not produced early in his career to the expectations of his original team. And the Saints took a flyer on him and got a lot out of him. I'm interested to see what happens now with the Saints rotation. It's going to be fascinating for training camp to see how these guys stack out. They have so much high draft pick capital invested at defensive end right now with, I mean, Carl Granderson, they just signed to a big deal this past year. We know the, you know, legendary, iconic Cam Jordan. Now you've got Chase Young, and then you also have invested recently in Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey. But I do think this signing tells you a little bit about what they think of Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey. They're not willing to gamble on if those guys are going to come along. They want something that might be a little more proven commodity.
Right, I completely agree. I mean, it's those guys haven't been healthy. Now, Chase Young, you could say, is a bit of a gamble, but it's relatively low risk, I think, for the Saints. The up to 13 million implies there's a lot of incentives in the deal, or at least some incentives that Chase Young can reach. If he doesn't work out, they can move on, I think, relatively easily, at least after the season. His contract will expire. But, I think with Chase Young, I'm interested to see, having covered him in Washington, is just how much does that experience kind of, I don't know if humble is the right word, but, he was from the Washington area, is from Maryland, kind of grew up there. I wonder if this change of scenery will benefit him just not playing at home. And I think we kind of saw that in San Francisco, at least watching interviews of him during the Super Bowl week. I know a lot of guys are happy to be there, but he did really seem, at least from afar, kind of relaxed, glad to be out of, his hometown. And I think the Saints being kind of I would call them a player-friendly organization, at least. I think that's good for him as well.
He was a menace in the Super Bowl too. I mean, I know a lot of people don't actually watch the game, but he was in the backfield every other play, Luke. And that's the impact he can have.
People don't watch a game thing. It's just it's a common thing you hit where you share an observation from the game. People are like, "You even watching the game, bro?" Anyways, look, I mean, let's be honest with this here. The Saints needed to do something. You look at their numbers. I think they were 28th in the NFL in sacks last year. You break it down even further, they're like 27th in quarterback knockdown percentage, 28th in pressure percentage. I think they had the number 30 amount of total quarterback hits last year. Like, that's not cutting it. And that's not cutting it in this defense. And we've seen this defense be really, really good. They were getting after the passer. You have to do it in this modern NFL, and you have to do it when the quarterbacks are getting better in this division. So it was imperative that they added to this. And like Jeff said, you can't just bank on Peyton Turner and Isaiah Foskey and the light switching on for him. Like, you needed to go out and do something, whether that was using the number 14 pick on a pass rush or adding somebody like Chase Young to the mix.
And looking at his numbers, I was just looking at the Pro Football Focus kind of pressure rate numbers. He was fairly mediocre. I think he was around 40th in the league, and that's considering snap rate and everything, but it was still higher than anybody the Saints have. Well as Carl Granderson played early, he really did tail off toward the end of the year. I think partly because of injury, partly because he probably got worn down because he became the guy that offenses focused on. So now you have a little bit better rotation maybe at the end position. I think we saw heard Dennis Allen allude to Cam Jordan and his production dropping. Obviously, look, we got to figure out a way to get more out of him. And I think that means a reduced role. And I think Chase Young fits into that mix.
Yeah, I was just about to ask what y'all think about Cam Jordan's role. And maybe that's the answer, is Cam Jordan's still going to play. Still a very good run defender, very balanced defensive end. But maybe he plays just a little bit less as he gets older, and a guy like Chase Young can help you do that. How about impact to the rest of the Saints offseason? We talked, the Saints had, we think, maybe $18 to $20 million in cap space. This is a $13 million fully guaranteed deal. What we don't know is whether that all counts against this year's cap or whether they're going to spread that out. Maybe they're not done.
I don't think they're done. They typically make one or two signings that outside of the signings they've already made, Nathan Peterman and Stanley Morgan and those types that you probably aren't going to see a bunch of the field. I think they're going to probably add another player or two to the mix here where they're expecting them to be contributors. They've still got contracts they can touch too. They haven't done anything yet with Alvin Kamara's contract. They haven't done anything yet with Taysom Hill's contract. It's not necessarily given that they're going to do something with those, but I would fully expect the Saints to make another signing or two. I think there's still guys out there who could help them, and guys at positions where they need help. The tackle market's been very, very slow to develop this year in free agency, and there's still a couple name guys out there, guys who've made All-Pros, guys who've made Pro Bowls. You're talking about David Bakhtiari, who would be like really high risk signing, but potentially huge reward signing if they wanted to go that route. There's Trent Brown out there, made a Pro Bowl with I think the Patriots a couple years ago. Hunter Renfro's still out there. I would fully expect them to still be active in free agency despite the signing. And again, we don't know how much this is going to count toward their 2024 cap, but they'll leave themselves some room for sure.
And look, I think one thing it does do is if you're doing mock drafts out there, I would eliminate edge rusher off at least your first round mock. They're so stacked right now with what they've invested at defensive end. I think what this does do is kind of address one question mark, maybe whatever they consider it, a must, a need, or a want. I think it addresses a big one for them, and they like to go into the draft with basically free to take the best player available. But I'd be stunned now if they took an edge rusher at the first or even with their second pick.
No, Dallas Turner's there, man. I might take him.
Yeah, maybe so.
He's not the prototype Saints defensive end, but if you can get a little bit more athleticism there, I think they'd take that, especially a premium position.
Yeah. I think it does make them more likely to draft offense, Matt, in the first round. But again, if a guy like Turner's there, I mean, this defense did slip quite a bit in the second half of last year. And if you're going to play the way Dennis Allen wants to play, you have to have that elite defense. And so, maybe there is a possibility that if the right guy's there, they'd spring for him.
Yeah, no, I could see it still happening. I think it's a long shot now, but it's still a guy like Dallas Turner, even Jared Verse. I mean, they're intriguing names in the draft regarding that. It's just, we mentioned earlier with Cam, what's his rotation going to be like? Chase Young was on a rotation too. In San Francisco, they had some pass rushers. He was playing, I think in the Super Bowl, he played around 70% of the snaps, but you look at some of those games, it was around the 45, 50% range. So I think Chase Young is still going to be part of a rotation here, whether that's, with Cam Jordan coming in, or even a guy like Peyton Turner, if he has a nice training camp, or Isaiah Foskey. I don't think they're exactly giving up on those guys, but it's just going to be more of a competition. And what I'm interested for Chase Young, just to go back to him for a second, is in Washington, coaches are sometimes frustrated that he wouldn't always listen to them, for a lack of a better word, in terms of freelancing. There was that viral clip during the playoffs of Chase Young not giving effort on a one tackle. I think in the NFC Championship game against the Lions, he's coming to New Orleans with, I think, something to prove and a little bit of scrutiny as well. And so, I think he really has to be on best behavior to kind of earn that spot.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but didn't he play primarily left defensive end in Washington? I think he played primarily right defensive end in San Francisco. So he's got some flexibility there. And I think that's what we've always seen with Dennis Allen. I mean, I could see them starting Cam Jordan, almost ceremonial, if you will, and him coming out or sliding inside in passing situations. You use Young in that NASCAR package again with Jordan slide inside. There's lots of possibilities now when you bring a guy like this into their equation.
I'm also just want to be on the record. I'm not writing Cam Jordan off yet either. I know he had a down season last year, but a lot of proof in the pudding there.
Yeah. So we'll continue to track this. By the way, we did get a comment. An O lineman, Oli Udo, is out there. I hope I'm saying that right. That there is that report out there. I think it was 33rd Team that reported that. We've not been able to confirm that Udo is signing here, and so we'll hold off on that. But we will be back with a regular Saints Insider on Wednesday, and certainly the Saints appear to still be active, at least in kind of the third tier of the free agent market. I mean, they probably don't have enough room for another splash signing, but we'll talk more about Chase Young, more of what's out there, and I don't know, guys. We probably see more movement this week.
I hope so. Give us something to do. Let's go, Saints. Are you listening?
So the Saints signed Chase Young, 1 year, $13 million deal is the report. We'll have much more all week on NOLA.com about that. We'll also have a new Saints Insider episode from our studios in Metairie on a Wednesday afternoon. So keep it locked for that. We appreciate you all joining us, and follow NOLA.com/Saints for all your Saints coverage. For Jeff Duncan, Luke Johnson, Matthew Paras, I'm Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.